What's up, guys? One of the hottest lure categories going right now are shad glides, and baits in this category, whether it's a glide, whether it's just a larger hard bait, whether it's a rat or a wake, this 2 to 4 ounce category of hard bait is super popular, and for great reason. Catch giant fish, relatively easy to throw in comparison to some of the bigger wakes and bigger hard baits out there. So today we're going to talk about the rods for throwing these baits, and specifically we're talking about 3 kind of under the radar rods in the bougie level that we think are really cool that you guys should put on your radar, because you hear us talk about a lot of the same rods all the time. So we're going to talk about 3 different ones this time that are perfect for this style bait. So if you guys are throwing this 2 to 4 ounce hard bait, stick around. Welcome to the Hookup Tackle.
Oh, what a stud.
Yeah. Look at that.
That was sick.
Cheers, my friends. Happy Sunday. All right, guys, some breaking news. What's new this week at the Hookup Tackle?
What a beautiful post-spawn fish.
Look at that.
Look at that gut on that.
That's a nice fish.
Welcome back, my friends. I am Ben with the Hookup Tackle, Tackle Otaku on Instagram, being joined by my buddy Jeffrey the King. We're the Hookup Tackle USA. All right, Jeff, this is your lane. I feel like we should be flip-flopping here, and I should be filming, and you should be talking, but nobody wants to listen to you.
That's right.
I'm just kidding. Well, will you have a beer with me?
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, let's talk about this category of bait. Now, dude, I've learned so much from fishing with you and watching what you do and how you approach things, and just seeing, you know, fish for myself hooked up, fish for you hooked up in different positions. Having the right gear for, you know, these larger baits is super critical for your land ratio, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
There are a million different ways to approach big baits, and a lot of times people will come into the shop and they'll say, hey, I want to get into swim baits. I want one rod that can throw everything, right? And there are certainly rods out there that are capable of throwing, you know, a 2 ounce rat, a 4 ounce shad glide, a 6 ounce slide swimmer, right? That can kind of cover the whole gamut. But what I find is, as much as I like a rod like a blackjack, for instance, for my, like, you know, 5-6 ounce, you know, stuff, if all I'm really doing is throwing like 2 or 3 ounces, I want a little bit more of a downsized rod. Are you the same way?
Yeah.
A little more comfortable, a little shorter generally, lighter, and I feel like I'm almost just like normal bass fishing instead of like wearing myself out all day. Same?
Yep.
Okay. So when you're looking for a rod for throwing this style bait, what are some of the attributes that you're looking for?
When we're talking about hard baits, I just need a rod anywhere in that probably 7.3 to like 7.9, maybe 8 foot even.
Okay.
For the most part, but anywhere in that 7.3 to like 8 foot is great. And I'm looking at normally like a medium heavy or a heavy swim bait rod.
Okay.
And so something that's parabolic, so something on the softer side. You don't want anything too stiff and too fast.
Yep.
Or else you're going to be bending a lot of hooks and dumping a lot of fish. It's just not going to be good.
Right.
So that's kind of how I look at it. And then from there, because nowadays there's so many rod companies that make that rod.
Yep.
Because there's so many baits in that category.
Yes.
So.
And I think that's an important thing to note is we're going to talk about 3 rods that we want to talk about today that we think are really cool, that we think you guys should pay attention to, whether you dive down the online rabbit hole, come into the shop, take a look at them. But there's tons of rods in this category, right? So, you know, I'm feeling bougie today. So we're gonna talk about bougier end rods, but there's rods like the KGB swimbait rod, right? That's, you know, 270 bucks. That would be a perfect one for this category. It's built for this category. You can even go down in price from there. Daiwa makes a $99 rod. Okuma makes some, like, you can go down whatever rabbit hole you guys want to go down. And there's a lot of good options. But at the end of the day, for me, enjoyment in casting has got to be there, because we're going to spend 99% of our day probably casting, right? And then land ratio is critically important. So I will sacrifice some enjoyment on the casting side if my land ratio is exponentially higher, right? So sometimes guys will put a rod in their hand and it'll just feel heavy, or it'll feel a little bit big, and they initially just dismiss it like, it's too big. But if the land ratio is exponentially better, I'm okay with that. I'll suffer through a little bit of too clunky or too heavy to land the few bites that I actually get, right? So there's always like these balances. You have to kind of gauge what's important for you. But, you know, when you're throwing a big bait like this, they get it in weird places, right? Side of the head, top of the head, under the jaw, you know, they're always hooked in strange ways, so you want that rod to have that parabolicness that you're talking about, and that's what these rods are going to have. So let's start with the rod. Now, there's a brand new iSlide. Okay, you've been fishing it, you've been prototyping it,
Yep.
You've been using it. This is the iSlide 187.
Yeah.
It's kind of in that same category, I'd say, as like a smaller shad glide or a jointed claw, right? And I literally just heard you say that this is your favorite rod for throwing that bait. Okay, so this is the Destroyer P5 Mark 56. Okay, so this is a rod that should definitely be on your radar if this is a type of bait that you throw. Now, I will preface that this is kind of the max that you're going to throw on this rod. So don't think that the Mark 56 is going to be like an Orochi Leviathan that you can throw, you know, a 2 ounce or a 7 ounce. It's not going to do that. This rod really wants to throw that 2-3 ounce bait, but it throws it amazingly well. Rats?
You could throw whatever on that.
So anything in that category.
Rats on it. I've thrown that iSlide. I've thrown that KGB Spro that we had on that rod. It's just a really badass rod. It's super lightweight. It's got the perfect bend to it. One of the first fish I even caught on it was an 8-pounder, right?
Right.
And so, like you said, you got the bait and it's in the side of the face. And I'm using stock hooks, and I normally don't. It was literally, I took it out of the package. I wanted to test out the swim, and an 8-pounder eats it at the boat.
Of course.
So then I'm shitting my pants. I'm like, okay, I have stock hooks on this thing. I've got a giant on, but the rod was doubled over, so it absorbed a lot of that fight, a lot of the pull, so it didn't pull out the hooks. I only started to pull out the hooks, started bending out the hooks, when I went past the breaking point of like, all right, I just need to pull this fish away from the cover, and I just overdid it, right? But other than that, the rod did a fantastic job on keeping the fish pinned, and it's a really fun rod to fish.
Yeah.
It's crisp on the glides. You get that great connection. You throw like a bit smaller, like a 200 size reel on it, and it's money.
Yeah, and that's a great point too. On pretty much any of these rods that we're talking about, you could get away with a 150 or 200 size reel on any of them, and you're gonna feel like you just have a normal rod.
Yes.
It's not like this huge swim bait setup, right? If you want it to feel bigger, put some grips on it or a handle or you know, whatever, but you're not gonna want to throw like a 300 size, you know, tool on here or anything. So you can stay in, you know, your 150, 200 size reels. Just to spec it out for you, it's 7.6. It's an F7.5 is their power rating. So it's 3/4 to 3.5 is the lure rating on there, which is probably pretty accurate. Yeah. So you could probably push it to 4, but that 3/4 ounce is actually kind of pretty accurate too. The first time you and I fished this, we were actually in Michigan like 2 or 3 years ago.
Something like that.
One of the initial prototypes, and we were just throwing mag slows.
Yeah.
Right? Like 7-inch mag slow, which is probably like 1 ounce.
Maybe. Yeah.
3/4, 1 ounce.
Super light.
Yeah,
I was doing
just
it great.
firing it around, and thump, you'd feel them eat it way out there. So, a killer rod, a great one for any of the shad glides, smaller glides, rats, wakes. So there you go. Rod number 1, Mark 56 from Megabass. All right, rod number 2. This is a relative newcomer to the line, and this is from Raid. So this is the Gladiator Anti. This is the Undertaker. Okay, now this is one of the cooler, I think, pretty cool styled rods. I think Raid does a really good job of blending sophisticated and simple, right? But still making it relatively modern. Now this is a little bit heavier rod. It's a 7.5, extra heavy. Okay, now don't get too caught up in medium heavy, extra heavy. It's all relative to the brand. Okay, so this is extra heavy by their standards, which isn't really that
Normally
heavy.
in Japan, like a double extra heavy is like, you could throw up to like 5 or 6 ounces on it.
So 5 ounce is
Right.
the lure rating on this
Yeah.
rod. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really designed, it's targeted at baits like this, right? You've got a 4 ounce bait, something in this category that's going to give you some weight, but it can throw a 2 ounce rat, something like that. So you can see it's got that relatively parabolic bend. It's 7'5", which is nice, so it's short. So a lot of guys prefer a shorter rod in this category, especially if they're fishing from shore, or maybe in places where there's really tight cover and you just need a little bit shorter rod to make a small little pitch. But it's got the bigger rear grip. It's spaced correctly, I feel like, right? So it's almost spaced like what an 8-foot swimbait rod would be.
Yep, just downsized.
But just downsized in a smaller package. So super sexy, super clean, just real simple hardware. One of the things that I love about Raid rods, and some of the new Megabass rods coming down the pipe are going to have features like this too, but just a little kind of velvety soft touch where your finger sets is nice instead of having like a sharp groove or something like that. So it's just a dope rod. Okay, so again, to spec it out, it's 7.5, double extra heavy by their standards, 5 ounce max lure rating, 16 to 30 pound line, super dope one. Okay, so there you go, the Undertaker. All right, and the third one is one that's been on the market for some time. It's had several different variations to it. And it's funny. It's spoken about and then it's forgotten about.
Yes.
And then it's spoken about and it's forgotten about. It's one of those that's like super popular for a while and then it just falls off the radar. And I think it can kind of be said for the brand itself in a lot of ways, right? But this is a rod from Gancraft. This is in their killers. This is the Gancraft Dead Sword. Okay, so they make two versions of this. They make a Dead Sword and they make a Dead Sword Magnum. Okay, so the Magnum obviously is a little bit bigger. The Dead Sword, you're sitting at 7.1, so it's a shorter rod even still, 1 to 3 ounce. The Dead Sword Magnum, you're at 7.6 and you're in that 2 to 5 ounce. Okay, so if you're really gonna throw some 3-4 ounce shad glides, maybe the Magnum would be better. But if you're really kind of just chilling in that like rat or smaller shad glide, the regular Dead Sword's sick because it's short. And it's not, you don't find a lot of shorter rods often that still have some bend to them, right? They still give. And what we're looking for is we're not looking just for the tip bend, but I'm trying to feel down here through the middle. I still want this to flex a little bit. So it may not flex on the cast, like you may feel all the load in the tip, but once you have an 8-pounder on there, then the rod kind of bends through the middle and it gives and it protects that fish and those hooks, lets you land it. Styling on Gancraft rods is super sick, very goth.
Yeah,
right?
very.
But you've got the metal, you've got the kind of, cool little like tattoo vibes going on. It's just, they're cool rods,
Very
they're sexy rods. You don't see a lot of them. Very well built. Killers rods have been on the market for ages. Now, I will preface that the regular Dead Sword, super light, real crisp, really easy to use. This would be a great one for like as a wake rod, small rat wake. I would dig this. Once you jump up to the Dead Sword Magnum, it feels like you've got kind of like a swimbait rod in your hands. Okay, so when you compare the Dead Sword Magnum to the Mark 56, I did feel that. So essentially the same rod.
Yeah.
Like it's night and day. It almost feels like you have two Mark 56s in your hands. It's substantially heavier, okay, and faster. Okay, so, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some guys like the rods to sit different ways. So it could be a good option to add in there again, but it'll be able to handle any of those bigger shad glides that you throw or almost up to a slide size with that. All right, guys, so that is a wrap. Short, sweet, quick video. 3 really cool rods that I think you guys would have a lot of fun. if you're fishing from a boat and you're just looking for, you know, that one rod, I still think this guy has it, right? I think this is really my favorite rod in this category. Now, if you have a rod like the Blackjack or the Casino, then by all means, you can get away with that for all these baits too, right? And those are the rods that you hear us talk about a lot, so I didn't really want to talk about them this time because we mention them all the time. But this is a really great newcomer, the Mark 56, and then either the Raid or the Gancraft would be excellent options if you guys are looking for just a little bit shorter and a little bit different styling. So if you have any questions on anything that we talked about, drop them down below. We will get answers for you. Jeff will leave links to the rods if you want to start going down the rabbit holes, or if you're in the Phoenix area, definitely come in, put these in your hands, bend them, put them to use, see what you guys think for yourself. So on behalf of myself and Jeff and everybody here at the Hookup Tackle guys, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching our videos. Thank you for your support, and we will see you again soon. Enjoy fishing wakes, rats, shad glides. Go catch some big ones. Peace, my friends.